Hello and welcome to Marshall Close-Up, the show where we interview important members of our community and learn something new about them. Brought to you by the Marshall County Media Arts class. I'm John Shelton today I'm here with Mr. Ryan Hughes, a former member of the Navy who currently works in IT in addition to training, managing, and running the tech team for Reedland Church. All right, let's get to the questions, Ryan. So where are you from?
I'm originally from Paducah, graduated from Lone Oak High School in '94. I left Paducah and have come back because I'd like the area, want to still be around family.
All right. Well, where'd you go to college after you graduated from Lone Oak?
Well, I actually did 2 years at what used to be called PCC. Now everybody knows it as Wiki Tiki. I was in the television and theater program there. I've left there, and after the Navy, came back, did a semester and a half at Murray State before being deployed, and then I finished my degree with University of Phoenix.
And you got a degree, what did you get a degree in?
My degree is in business management.
And that's pretty different from, like, I know you do media arts and tech, and then you were in the Navy. That's pretty different. Like, what led from that to joining the Navy?
Well, a whole lot of different stuff. So I absolutely love technology. I love production. But during that time, I got a little bored. And so I joined the Navy to develop some other skill set. And so in that skill set, a lot of management, supervisor, logistic kind of skills. And then I've just kind of progressed using all of that, all of those skills and traits along the way to help further who I am in my career path.
And I mean, there's a lot of branches in the military. The Navy is just one of a few. My granddad, on my mom's side, was in the Air Force. How come you chose the Navy compared to like the Army, the Marines, the Air Force? Or?
Well, I come from a military family. So I've had a lot of family members that joined the Navy. My uncle was actually a submariner, and I thought the stories were absolutely interesting. So when I went to go join the Navy, I said, I am going to be a submariner, and if I can't, I'm not joining. And so I was able to get into the submarine program.
And, well, what was the average day like on the submarine?
Well, it depends. If you're in port, it's just like any other job. You show up at 7:30, you do whatever you need to do.
Submarine stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you're building. Just like if someone come to school or come to work here at Marshall, you come into the building, you do your thing. I was in logistics and supply, so I had to make sure all the departments are supplied, make sure everything's stocked. It's the business side of it. Out to sea is just like being on a boat. Just you're stuck in a tube for sometimes months on end.
All right. Well, speaking of like being out at sea, what was did anything interesting happen? Like, did you chase after any bad guys or stuff?
Some of that I can't talk about.
Oh.
But I can say that I was part of operations that a lot of like war games testing with a lot of international partners, such as the Great Britain and France, Italy. All of those were part of different exercises, because it's all about training, right? So you want, when something happens, you want to make sure that you're best trained for whatever happens. And it only did 4 years with the submarines. I ended up going doing security. I taught classes for 5 years. So part of that, part of my job was along the way is just learn new skills to develop whatever the job I was doing at the time.
Well, how long were you originally in the Navy? Because I believe you came back and then 9/11 happened and you went back to the Navy.
So I did 4 years of active, which was submarines. I got out, and honestly, we were a delivery submarine for SEAL Team 2. And so I got tired of going to sea, so I needed a little break. And I was like, oh, college will be good. I got into the reserves, and so that 1 weekend a month, a lot of people hear about like Army reserves or other reserves, is that it was a security unit. 9/11 did happen, and our unit was one of the first ones to deploy to Bahrain, which is a little country off the coast of Saudi Arabia. There, I guarded essentially spy planes and other personnel coming in and out of the airport there.
And if I remember, I believe you told me you and Miss Leslie, your wife, you got married really quickly before getting shipped off?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so I was, we were engaged and to be married, say September 11th, 2001, and then we were supposed to be the next year. But because of it, my orders were for 2 years. They didn't know what was going to happen. This was at the beginning of the war. So I got permission, let's get married. So we got married on Friday night. I left Monday morning, and I was gone and I was gone for 10 months.
Were you two ever like really worried about each other? Like,
well, for me, the mindset of being in a dangerous spot doesn't bother me as much, but just like anybody else, the way you care for people, I care, I was worried about, is she taken care of, what she needs. For me, I was on a mission, right? So I was mission set.
You were dedicated.
I was dedicated. My headspace was, for the job at hand. It was at the beginning of the war. A lot of people didn't know what was going to happen, what was going on.
Well, I mean, you've obviously got a lot more bravery than I do. I couldn't go out and fight in the war. I'm too scared of getting it, like hurting others. But I mean, a lot of movies have been made about the military. I know you and I have discussed a lot about the Hunt for Red October, one of the most famous about submarines. But I just want to ask you, like, you've been in the military. How accurate are those in depicting them?
Well, a lot of them are everything, for media. We craft our videos to tell a story, right? Some stories are not so interesting. Some other stories you have to edit and craft it to make it interesting, to grab the audience piece. Hunt for Red October is really close to at the time. Are we chasing Russians? Is there defectors? No, because that's a story. That's actually a fictional story. But the way submarine and the operations are, a lot of it is pretty accurate because Tom Clancy used to come to our base up in Connecticut and visit to learn about this. Another great true story, or not true story, but how things happen is the submarine movie Hunter Killer. That one's a fantastic one. But that, all I can say is my experience because everybody else's experience. I couldn't tell you, how some movies are made for other experiences like Black Hawk Down or whatever, SEAL Team TV shows. They're all crafted to tell a story.
And you just mentioned Tom Clancy. I'm familiar with his books that inspired video games. The one I'm most familiar with is Rainbow Six. Did you ever get to meet him while he was on your base?
I did not. There was talks we would know when he would come on the base, but it's usually he visits for high level people for that.
But I mean, he's missing out. You're one of the coolest guys I know.
But I doubt that.
So how did being in the military and doing all the stuff you did really impact your relationship with God? Because I know you're a very faith-centric man. I want to know how that really impacted you.
Well, a lot of times situations, you hear people of where their faith tradition comes in. Some people lose their faith but are put into a situation where they start thinking about life. Deployments, you kind of think about what I'm going to do when I get home. For me, is that what is important in my life? What brings me strength? I'm not a person that a lot of people would say, hey, I'm a Bible thumper. We're called to be an example. So my deal is to be an example and best help people that way.
And that kind of reminds me of the story. Earlier this year, we went to Winterfest, and there was a man speaking there about his time in the military and how he got him back into God. And that sort of reminds me of that story a little. And I remember you saying that it was really impactful to you.
Yeah, so he's a professor at Harding University. He had a little bit of a career similar to me, is that he did security, he was in a watchtower, and the opposite was I didn't go take a Bible and sit there and read. But he did, because even though it was somewhat parallel, at the same time it wasn't the same. And a lot of times for us is that we're looking for something to drive us, something to center us. In school, you may be part of clubs like a media club, or you're an athlete, and that kind of centers you. often later on in life, you kind of reevaluate what's important. And so most times a lot of adults kind of start moving into more faith-based, whether it's Christian or, depending on the faith tradition, is what is important to them. And then so you mentioned that the professor is, yes, during that time is that maybe I should reevaluate what's important.
Yeah, but would you, if you could do it again, all the military stuff and everything, would you?
Absolutely. I retired out of the reserves after doing 22 years.
Whoa.
Like I say, I was a submariner. I did security in Bahrain. I've been deployed to Kuwait as a marshalling yard supervisor, big parking lot with lots of tanks and helicopters and stuff like that. I was a part of supervisor. I taught classes for 5 years. I am, a lot of who I am today is because of the military, teaching leadership skills and how to talk to people, and just a lot of times of, not say bravery, but times to just be a good person and do the right thing.
Now, whenever I spoke to you a few weeks ago, I was asking you a few questions prior to this. You told me you work at Kalleo Technologies.
Kalleo Technologies.
Kalleo.
Yep.
And then down in Paducah as a sales operations manager. What exactly does that mean? And how did you go from being in a submarine to that? Like, where's the parallels?
Yeah, so I was looking for a career change. I was many years, I'd worked in Texas and in northern Kentucky, kind of in the specialty grocery business, and I was wanting something different. Like I say, I loved technology since I was a teenager, and came across the ability to change, use my business skills, use my management skills, and get into IT because I wanted to be around technology. Kalleo's job is, essentially it boils down to when a company doesn't want to hire internal IT, they hire us. We have a full engineers to help us. I could go on and on. So I've been with the company for 13 years.
Wow.
But my job is sales operations, so I'm over all of account management. I have about 6 people that report to me. Part of it is the account management of making customers happy. So I've got customers from local law enforcement. We manage like McCracken County and Graves County and City of Mayfield. Those are local companies to big healthcare systems all around the country. And so I use that to be able to just provide good customer service and leadership.
And the world is being impacted more and more by AI and like things like ChatGPT. I believe the art one is called Dolly. Has that really impacted your work in any way? Like, is there a need for people like you more, or is it sort of being taken over by AI?
Oh, absolutely. We use our own. We actually develop our own AI for stuff. So for being an IT professional, say you're a technician, we use AI. I'm a customer. I call you. I have got a problem, right?
All right.
Our guys create a trouble ticket, and our AI will say, "Hey, technician, try these steps to help them out." Right? So that helps you as a technician to be able to maybe hear steps that I can do. I use AI all the time. My boss, who's our VP of sales, we use it all the time. We have to write contract languages. I didn't spend lots of money to sit in law school. So I have contracts that I can run through AI to go, hey, craft this based off of, say, Kentucky laws or New York state laws, Texas laws. Kind of help develop our contract language that way.
So it's sort of like a computer lawyer for you.
Yes, AI is amazing in a sense of we've had guys will work on between Grok and a couple of others to say, build me some software. And it's amazing that the software that it can within 2 minutes can build for you to implement.
So how did all this sort of lead to you doing tech work for Reedland Church? But was Reedland Church your first church you did tech work for?
Yes and no. I actually did some audio. I learned a lot of audio engineering along the way. Even though that wasn't part of any kind of studio or a media company, I always had that love. So I always studied, I always would research. So I got into a little bit of audio engineering. So I did that at a church in Dallas.
When about did you start doing that?
That was 2005, 2006. And then so I've just learned along the way. Coming to Reedland, there was a need. It's just like here at Marshall, there's a need for a media program. So you have someone that kind of looks, okay, what can take us to the next level? What is the end goal? You know, you want to be able to have a high quality program. So what equipment do I need? What kind of training? So Reedland had that. So I brought you on board, you know, because any other house of worship, any church, you do slides, okay, that comes through a computer. You need audio. And then the pandemic kind of shaped a lot of churches to where, hey, we want to go online. Now I already had something in place, but I knew that to build a small little tech group, a single person needs to do a majority of it, right? So you've set on video, so you know you have a lot of PTZ cameras, high quality PTZ cameras to be able to control. You know, I love the idea of having a 3-camera shoot, have people in a control room. It's a team effort, right? But
how difficult is it to like train others whenever you're like introducing someone new? Because for me, it felt like one week I was being trained, and then the next week I was able to do it all on my own. Like,
so, a lot of it is when you want, and this goes for anything, right? I learned a long time ago, for someone to learn, I need to show you something, right? So you're introduced to the information. Then I need you to do it, and then have someone watch you. They're coaching you through that. Then you need to teach somebody. Right? So you kind of have this 3-step process. How difficult is it? It's usually the difficult of the setup. I had to do it. I don't want really super high quality makes it so difficult that I can't get a volunteer to come in and sit because it's too complicated. But for someone like you that kind of understands, that is trainable, that has a will to learn, that's the big thing, is the will to learn, to be able to put you in that situation.
And I'm honestly really thankful that you got me in there. I remember I was just there with my dad coincidentally while you were training him, and I think he just mentioned, oh, John, do you want to try this out for a minute? And I said, sure, and then you trained me. But you also got involved, I believe, are you on the Celebration Committee, which Celebration is the event up at the dam? Yeah,
Celebration Kentucky is a once a year youth event that's held up at Kentucky Dam Village. It's a youth event, Christian youth event that is about 600 or so. Back when I was in high school, it was about 1,200 before the Kentucky Dam kind of did a remodel and closed their space in. I'm over all lighting and audio, so I'm essentially the audio engineer for that. So you have a praise group come in, all the speakers that come in from around the country, sound effects for games and all of that. So my role is essentially, I'm on the board for it, is the design and implementation for that weekend.
Well, it was great hearing from you, Ryan, and thank you so much for being here. It's been a blast, and that's all for today. I'm John Shelton, and thank you for watching Marshall Close Up.